What's up, guys? It's Endymion, and let me ask you something. Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity? Insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over again, expecting things to change. That is crazy. But when it comes to Ubisoft lately, that seems to be their motto, as the company was recently reported to be in financial hell. So what's going on over there at Ubisoft? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. Recently, it was reported that Ubisoft has cancelled 7 unannounced games in order to, in their own words, help ensure the company's energy is focused on building our brands and live services into some of the most powerful within the industry. While this may seem logical at first, the problem is that Ubisoft's current financial stats are painting a severely bleak picture. The company is currently in the dumps when it comes to profitability, with one of their recent titles, Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope, underperforming well below expectations. That's not to mention that Ubisoft has already cancelled quite a few games in the past 2 years from their big battle royale that failed called Hyperscape. That was a game Ubisoft was pushing really hard to become the next big thing, and within 2 years that entire game has been scrubbed from existence and is no longer playable in any form. Then there's Ghost Recon Frontline, which was announced in late 2021 as a massive free-to-play online shooter. But like many of Ubisoft's titles, Frontline was another homogenized by the numbers experience by the company. And the reveal trailer had staggering dislikes to like ratios, and the alpha test was even delayed indefinitely. There was a glimmer of hope in late January 2022 when Ubisoft would release a closed beta for Frontline, but even with the game being played behind closed doors, it still leaked onto the internet. It was heavily criticized for having no original ideas of its own, as well as being a worse version of Call of Duty Warzone. It also lacked any of the tactical gameplay that is synonymous with the Ghost Recon brand. Basically, Frontline was nothing but Ghost Recon in name. And like its reveal trailer, the game was heavily criticized for being nothing new and another lazy Ubisoft original like so many others before it. Eventually, this all led to the higher-ups deciding that after millions of dollars in investments and developer time spent, that it was pointless to move forward, and yet another Ubisoft game would be cancelled before release. Then of course you have the Prince of Persia remake, which looked god-awful when it was announced. The game looked like the devs had a weekend and a $20 budget to remake the classic, and the backlash was so nuclear that Ubisoft also delayed that game indefinitely. It's apparently gotten better since, but the fact Ubisoft saw the original version as quality at the time speaks volumes to how inept they've become lately. Ubisoft would also announce an emergency financial call in order to strategize their leadership into making the company profitable again. They cancelled 3 more games apparently, with one of them being a Splinter Cell VR game, and would announce a cost cut of roughly $215 million over the next 2 years. As if all of this wasted potential money and time wasn't bad enough, the CEO of Ubisoft would go on to say some tone-deaf things about the downfall of the company. Yves Guillemot would end up saying in an email to employees, quote, "Today more than ever, I need your full energy and commitment to ensure we get back on the path to success. I am also asking that each of you be especially careful and strategic with your spending and initiatives to ensure we're being as efficient and lean as possible. The ball is in your court to deliver this lineup on time and at the expected level of quality, and show everyone what we are capable of achieving." End quote. As you can expect, this insanely desperate email told employees that if you don't start working harder, spending less money, and basically if you become a robot that is willing to throw your social life and maybe even shun your family, friends, and just completely give yourself to Ubisoft as nothing but a vessel for the company to use, then maybe we'll become profitable again. As you can expect, these comments were met with severe backlash from employees because it wasn't their fault these games were not coming out or meeting quality standards. Every single decision isn't made by the sound engineers or level designers, but the leadership in charge. Leadership like Yves and his managers, who with their blatant lust for greed and over monetization of their franchises, led to this crisis in the first place. You have to understand that when it comes to Ubisoft, every one of their games are heavily monetized and they're all designed to be live services. Even single-player games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla has one of the biggest item shops I think I've ever seen in a premium single-player game. Ubisoft clearly doesn't care about quality since none of their games have won or have been nominated for Game of the Year in forever. I mean, they even had a Game of the Year edition for Far Cry 6, a game that was never nominated for Game of the Year by anyone. It's a company that is full of greedy investors and executives who see gaming as nothing but a cash grab ripe for exploitation. And when people like that are in charge of making the financial and design decisions, it leads to cataclysms like the one Ubisoft is currently in. It's not up to employees to make sure they're conscious with spending or feeling obligated to sacrifice their lives in order to make the company money. It's just the idiots at the top in their white-collar suits who have no idea what it even takes to make games in the first place. Ubisoft's executives don't care if some game developer can't see their family, just shut up and make more microtransaction items for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you faceless game developers. Hurry up, because Yves Guillemot needs to buy another yacht so he can bask in the sun from all your hard work. Obviously, this entire emergency email thing didn't go over well, and Yves would be forced to backpedal on his comments, with Ubisoft's employees sending Yves an email back that said, and I love this, "Bless you crazy Ubisoft employees because this is so gold." Ubisoft's employees collectively said, and I quote, "The ball is now in our court. For years it has been in your court, so why did you mishandle the ball so badly so we, the workers, have to fix it for you?" End quote. And I love it. I love it when employees band together and just spirit bomb executives like this, so good on you Ubisoft employees. Yves would respond by saying, quote, "I heard your feedback and I'm sorry this was perceived that way. When saying the ball is in your court to deliver our lineup on time and at the expected level of quality, I wanted to convey the idea that more than ever I need your talent and energy to make this happen. This is a collective journey that starts of course with myself and with the leadership team to create the conditions for all of us to succeed together." End quote. Amidst all of this internal going-ons, one of the demands of Ubisoft's employees, who were apparently close to going on strike, was to demand a 4-day work week. In response, Chief People Officer Annika Grant, who works with Ubisoft executives, would immediately reject this demand, which I'm sure didn't go over well internally at Ubisoft. And in case you needed to quantify how badly it's going for Ubisoft right now, they're projected to lose roughly $537 million in revenue by March 2023 due to these mistakes. Then of course we have Ubisoft's other upcoming franchise that is stuck in purgatory in the form of Skull and Bones. This game was Ubisoft's answer to taking the pirate ship mechanics from Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag and turning it into its own game. What should have been an easy slam dunk, however, is anything but that, with Skull and Bones recently being delayed for the 6th time. And the game's release date has been removed, and all pre-orders on platforms like PlayStation, Steam, and so on have all been refunded to players. So you're probably asking, what the hell is going on with Skull and Bones? And if it wasn't clear already, it's that the leadership seem to have no idea what they're doing. You can delay a game once, maybe twice, but when you're at your 6th delay, people are going to start asking questions. Kotaku reached out to Ubisoft about Skull and Bones, and a Ubisoft spokesperson had this to say, quote, "While Skull and Bones is now complete, we are using the remaining time until our launch to leverage feedback from our ongoing technical tests and upcoming open beta to polish and balance the experience." End quote. While this may sound great, you gotta remember that Skull and Bones was announced 6 years ago. This is a game that isn't even in development hell anymore. It's in the abyss beyond hell itself. I honestly have no hopes for this game at all. It looks like a mess and will be another live service, unfinished buggy mess that'll likely piss everyone off when it releases. I also forgot to mention that Just Dance 2023 also underperformed, meaning none of Ubisoft's titles in the past year have made profits that are deemed healthy by the company. Kotaku also had this to report, quote, 3 current and former Ubisoft developers who wish to remain anonymous because they were not authorized to speak about company plans recently told Kotaku that they are already seeing cuts by way of fewer backfills for recently departed colleagues and fewer contracts getting renewed for those working on a temporary basis. They also said there were layoffs across some of Ubisoft's US locations last fall, including its San Francisco office. A spokesperson for Ubisoft said only 27 positions were eliminated as part of this restructuring, end quote. Even though this is all awful and doomsday sounding, Yves Guillemot did try to spin the news in a positive light by saying the content being developed right now across all of Ubisoft studios is apparently the biggest pipeline in Ubisoft's history. And Yves is excited to share more news around June 2023 when all the game companies do their E3 stuff. Look, Ubisoft still does have some potential big sellers coming, with Assassin's Creed Mirage releasing at some point this year. They also have Avatar Frontiers of Pandora 2, which is a massive open world game set within James Cameron's universe. They also have a secret Star Wars open world game in development as well, and I could probably tell you what Avatar and the Star Wars game will play like. Imagine Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but now you have lightsabers. Or imagine Assassin's Creed or any other Ubisoft open world game ever, but now you can fly a weird alien dragon. And you play as a tall blue Smurf guy or lady who can connect to animals using their genitals in their hair. Am I the only one that finds that weird, by the way? Like, I know this is kind of off topic, but seriously, you ever notice how in Avatar they don't have genitals where humans usually do, but it's like in that weird tentacle in their hair? So does that mean every time an Avatar person connects to their weird alien horse or dragon that they're kind of having, you know what with it? Actually, you know what? I don't want to know. I regret even saying anything, but it's definitely weird. Them blue weirdos are basically using their genitals to connect to their steeds. James Cameron is a weird guy. Just remember he made Terminator and ignore the blue hair thing. But anyway, maybe Avatar and Star Wars being just reskins of other Ubisoft games is enough for some people, but to me, Ubisoft is so in the dumps lately that they are the epitome of quantity over quality. Every one of their games feels the exact same, making each of their titles feel more like expensive expansions than actual sequels. Just look at the Far Cry series, which has largely been the exact same game since Far Cry 3. Every Far Cry game is the same thing, over and over again. Ubisoft used to have unique mechanics in each of their games as well. Splinter Cell was a stealth noir experience, Assassin's Creed was a historical action-adventure, and games like Ghost Recon were actually about, tactical gunplay. Nowadays, it's hard to tell the difference between The Division or Ghost Recon. I mean, Watch Dogs is just the greatest hits of the best and worst things of every Ubisoft IP ever, Dragon Ball Fusion Dance into one franchise. The point I'm trying to make is that Ubisoft lacks any sort of originality or quality these past few years. I know that Assassin's Creed Red is going to Japan, which should get me excited, but Ghost of Tsushima already exists. And honestly, I doubt that Ass Creed Red is going to be anywhere near the quality of Ghost. It's most likely going to be a buggier copy of Ghost with a microtransaction store at launch and pointless ranks to enemies' health bars that'll just make combat a sponge-hitting fest. I mean, we're seeing the death of multiple live service games in real time, from Hyperscape, Frontlines, or even other companies admitting defeat recently like Crystal Dynamics with the Avengers. That game should have been a unique and fun co-op experience, but it ended up being transformed into an awful live service game instead. And Crystal Dynamics has finally just thrown in the towel with that game, even though they never added a Kree invasion story expansion which was promised, mind you, or adding Captain Marvel or She-Hulk as playable characters. And it's the same thing for people who bought skins for Hyperscape. You can't even access the skins or items that you bought for that game since Ubisoft took it offline. It's all a mess. Unfortunately, Ubisoft went from a company that had pedigree and forward-thinking ideas to becoming a trend chaser that has been hemorrhaging revenue in the never-ending chase to make everything into a live service. It's not the fault of the devs, but the leadership at the top. Yves Guillemot, Annika Grant, and the rest of the executives at the top in their nice leather chairs will be fine even if Ubisoft does go under one day. But like always, it'll be the thousands of game developers who will have to pay the price for the mismanaging of leadership that doesn't know their ass from their own mouth. They'll keep releasing the same games with the same mechanics over and over and over again. And it seems that hopefully, to some degree, Ubisoft is starting to realize that players want more than the same recycled games time and again. Did you know that Ubisoft recycles so much stuff that even games like Far Cry 4 and Far Cry Primal, they share the exact same map? Well, now you do. And it seems amidst all this turmoil, Ubisoft executives even explored selling or merging the company, but they were laughed at by potential buyers. Either the companies they approached want nothing to do with them, or Ubisoft valued themselves far beyond what they're actually worth these days. But until Ubisoft wisens up and starts making actual feature-complete games that players enjoy, they'll continue to exist in the dumps of modern gaming. Remember, if you're ever looking for who's to blame when it comes to why a video game sucks, it's almost always the leadership. And it's awful that there's thousands of people out there working like crazy for a CEO who thinks it's their fault that his company is trash. But that's what happens when you do the same thing over and over and over again while expecting things to change. And before I go, let me ask you something. Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?